Well, welcome to Bigger Picture. We've got Max Brandon here again for take number 2, the second time that I've had Max on, and unfortunately we didn't have audio the first time, so none of you got to experience the conversation that we had last time. But fortunately, we get to do it again. Maybe Max is a little more comfortable being in front of a microphone and on camera this time. I know I'm certainly more comfortable.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Thank you again for joining me. I felt terrible. It was literally about 20 seconds after you rolled out of our parking lot that I called you and said, we got a problem.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you being willing to come back. I apologize for that. And we'll do it bigger and better this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I was just worried on the way here. I'm like, man, I just don't want it to sound like we forced it because, like I said last time, I didn't want to have to say that over and over again. So hopefully we can do this and it stays very genuine and not like we had to write it down after I left.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I don't remember anything we said last time, so I'm not going to repeat it.
And I could be impactful.
What I meant is I don't remember exactly how we said it last time. So we're going to talk about the same exact things.
Yep.
But as far as the term, like we said last time, that's the last time we'll say it. And this is the first time that I'm hearing it, we'll pretend, and we'll just roll on. So first thing I want to start out with, and I think this is the most interesting thing that that everybody wants to know about, because you post about it a lot, but I don't think a lot of people know your background. I don't think a lot of people know your upbringing and how you got into real estate. I thought that you were in the military flying drones for the military. It turns out that's not the case. So I want to go through, let's start with your upbringing, start with your childhood, how you were raised, your experience, and then what led you to real estate.
Yeah, man, it's definitely a long journey. I mean, it was just me, my mom, my brother. Dad wasn't really in the picture. We grew up in a few apartment complexes here in Guntersville. Started off in Angel Apartments right by the high school. They demolished that, and then we moved over to Mountain View Apartments, and we just had it rough, man. Some people, we just, you get your cards, you play, and some people playing well, and some people just life just kind of gets them, I guess. So I don't blame anybody, but it was rough. In the middle of addiction and domestic violence and just poverty, and you're living as well as you can off the government. Sometimes that just doesn't seem to cut it. So, I wouldn't say I was ever homeless, but we were a few pieces of legislation away. So I'm just grateful for that was never the case. But the good thing is, man, that's what made me who I am. It made me, I don't know, it just gave me this hunger from a young age that I knew I was gonna have to do something big with, because it was sort of a generational thing. It had been this way for, my parents, my grandparents, even on both sides in many cases, of mom and dad in many ways, were just this curse, man. It's like the devil just kind of had him by a chokehold, and it wasn't going to have me that way. So.
Well, why did you, there's a lot of people that grow up with similar upbringing to that. There's a lot of people that are in the same boat now that you were then. Not everybody decides to make the decision to escape that. Not everybody decides to make it their mission to get out and to do better. And I've often heard you say this, to break those generational curses. What do you think played into? Was it you're just wired that way from the beginning, or was there some kind of learning experience that pushed you to want to do better and have that desire?
No, I definitely didn't think this way at first. You really buy into the attitude. Poverty, I hate to say this, in a lot of ways it's not, but in many ways, poverty is sort of a mindset and a culture. And the reason why I say that is because everyone that kind of comes from where I came from bought into this loser's mindset of, we're poor because rich people are rich, or we're poor because, the world wants us to be, or we're poor because we're oppressed. And I kind of bought into that for a while. So then I kind of became sort of a bad kid, I guess, getting into mess, partying, drinking, and all that stuff. But then my brother was born, and as he started getting older, it started to hit me, and I was like, that fear I feel that graduation's on the way, and I'm looking down. A lot of people look down and they see their parents, like, I got you. Worst case scenario, move back in with mom. I looked down and I didn't see anything, and so it wasn't fear for my life, but I was like, there's no way my brother I'm gonna be so ignorant that I'm just gonna let him suffer and not have my. So I knew, he's 10 years younger than me. So when I was 17, he was 7, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm about to graduate, and this ain't happening. He's not going to feel this absolute terror that I feel right now. And something clicked. And, now looking back, I would say it's God, but at the time I wasn't faithful at all. So why he would do that for me, it's just crazy. But this fire, my brother, my little brother, I was like, this dude's basically my son. And I've never loved anything as much as I love my brother. And I was like, he's not gonna have this pain that I had to go through.
And when you said during graduation you looked down and didn't see anything, what do you mean? Was your mom not present, literally not present, or just you didn't have that sense of a safety net?
I mean, in a lot of ways she was, she wasn't. We haven't really always seen eye to eye, but it was just like the fact that, like, okay, I had great scores on my ACT. I had a 25, which is pretty solid. I had really great grades. I had all this, but even if I got a full ride scholarship, we still couldn't afford books. Like when I went to college, I was donating plasma and getting referral fees from the local plasma donation center to pay my phone bills and things like that. And so, like, there was no guidance. My family didn't go to college, so I didn't know who to talk to, who had office to talk to, what to do. Even once I did get a scholarship, what do I do? Who's going to help me here? So I'm looking out, and there's no roadmap at all. And it was just me, and it was just terrifying, man. It was awful. So it's not like she couldn't have been there in some way. Even if she was, she also didn't have the roadmap.
Well, I think it's good that you had, like you said, it's probably almost definitely a God thing that he placed that fire in you. And your brother, I know for a fact your brother's a big motivator for you, because I've heard you mention him multiple times where you want to provide for him in the way that same safety net, in a sense of you want to be there for him, you want to do better for him, you want him to do better and to learn from you. So talk about that a little bit. How much younger is your brother than you?
10 years.
10 years younger.
Yep.
So what about him being in the picture now? What about that creates that desire for you?
Maybe it was me seeing him as my younger self and wanting to be for him what I wish I had. Because I mean, it's like, I don't know. There were so many things in many ways that our families cared about us, but they would say things to us that were very destructive without knowing it. Like, at a pretty young age, I mean, like 15, 16, I had this dream of being a millionaire. And I would write it on my whiteboard in my room. I'd write it down in my memo pads. I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire by 30. Like, that's going to happen. And they would say things like, Max, that's not going to happen. Only rich people can get rich. You better let go of this pipe dream and get you a regular blue-collar 9-to-5 job, or you're never going to make it. You sound crazy.
Who would say things like that? Teachers?
My family.
Like your family?
My family. And it's not that they didn't. They were also scared of the world because the world had burned them. And so that fear was something that I wanted to go out and show my brother, I guess, that if you don't listen to that voice and you just go give it a shot, you can do huge things. And I'm so grateful that worked out, because it was scary. It was scary when I joined the military. It was terrifying. Is this the right decision? Nobody was there to tell me whether it was or was not. When I took the jobs overseas, and we'll get into all that, buying real estate. No, there's no homeowners in my family. So it's like, why would I do that? All those things. They were all just total leaps of faith. And it was pretty scary. Yeah.
Well, and what that makes me think of is especially from an insurance standpoint, makes me think of risk. It's interesting that I think from what I hear when you say that is your family was very risk adverse, in a sense of what you're wanting to do sounds like something way larger than what's feasible and what's realistic in their upbringing and what their experience of life is. And so to go chase that is this large risk that you take, chasing that without producing any sort of real income. Whereas, blue collar job, you go get the job, a paycheck's coming, you know how much you're making an hour. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's almost like you were driven towards, this is my goal. The risk that's associated with getting there is far worth it. It is well worth it, because where I want to go is is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I'm trying
No,
to say
it absolutely does. But it's funny, with you talking about risk, you would think, starting from where I started from, you would think there's no time for risk. Let's slowly build our way back up. If we build a small tower, it's easier to keep it from falling over.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, like I said, I looked down, I didn't see anything. What's the worst that could happen? We're already
That's
at
exactly
zero.
right.
So all I knew was, I had read so many books. Once that fire sort of lit, my senior year of high school, I went and picked up some books from Barnes & Noble. Never, ever read, never did summer reading in school. I hated reading. I just hated it. But I got into self-help. I got into the Dave Ramsey's of the world and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And once I started reading those, it just started opening up my mind to like how necessary risk was, and that by not taking risks, that's sort of like that's the riskiest thing you could do.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in love with the idea of risk and leverage and getting to the next level, because starting from ground zero, even just getting to like a good life, is pretty far away.
Yeah. And I like a couple things that you said in that I really like. So firstly, when it comes to risk, and I love talking about risk because I think there's a misconception with doing risky things in business and in just your career in general. Everybody loves a safety net. Everybody loves doing something that's really, really safe. And a couple things that you said is you look down and you didn't see anything. So what do I have to lose? Let's bet it all on this dream that I have. Regardless of, I think something that a lot of people could take away from that is regardless of their upbringing, regardless of growing up the way that you did, even if they didn't grow up that way, even if they did grow up with more, maybe more financial help in their background, even still, you were just beginning in your career when the age you are when you graduate, or senior year, mm-hmm. or early on in your career. What do you have to lose? I mean, if you have this dream of something that you want to do and you have this burning desire to do it, it is just like you just said, it's almost more risky not to chase that, because you're going to spend the rest of your life with that burning desire for that thing and never accomplish it. Whereas if you just bet it all, go all in on what your dream and desire is, if you don't make it, so what? You at least didn't make it pursuing what you wanted to do, as opposed to settling for something you don't want to do, dreaming that you wish you would have started. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people miss that. And a lot of times in our culture, I do think culture's changing a little bit mm-hmm. on this. Yeah. But a lot of times in our culture, it's the standard track of go to college, get a degree, get a good paying job, something that's a guaranteed paycheck. And then, if you want to dabble in something on the side that you're interested in, sure, go do that once you have that big safety net. I would argue against that 100%. If what you're moving towards is not what you dream to do, then you're not moving in the right direction. And it is more risky to do that than it is to bet it all and go chase after what you want to do, because you're going to get to the end of it and you're going to be dissatisfied no matter how safe it may be. Yeah. You're likely going to be dissatisfied in where you ended up, mm-hmm. as opposed to maybe you make it, maybe you don't, but at least you tried to go towards what you've always dreamed you want to do.
Oh, 100%. And also it's better to, there's a Matthew McConaughey quote where he says, get them early so you don't have to get them as often. Get them now. And once you understand the financial aspects of it, the compound interest, the time, the growth, you can get into the numbers, but just get them early so you don't have to get them as often. Later on, when you have kids and a wife and other people that depend on you, the actions of, the consequences of failure are a heck of a lot higher.
It becomes a lot more risky.
Yes, a lot more risky. So once you're graduating, dude, freaking go for it. Even the first 10 years, mm-hmm. all the way up to almost even 30 years old, you don't have anything to lose. You're still good. You can still start a family. You can still start over and get that blue collar 9-to-5 job if that's what you decided. Look, I gave it a shot. I wanted to be an actor. It didn't work out, blah, blah, blah. But at least you tried. And mm-hmm. and I live by memento mori. I believe it's a Greek phrase, but it means remember that you die. So I keep that at the back of my mind, the front of my mind always. Remember that you die, that you get to do this thing one time. It's a little bit classier than YOLO. But you get to do this thing one time, man. So, just go freaking do it. Mm-hmm. And you'll be happy that you tried and failed. You'll be a lot happier then than if you got to your deathbed and after all these decades of you telling yourself that it's okay that you didn't try, getting to your deathbed, taking those last breaths and thinking, man, I had one shot. And I didn't do it because I was afraid, or because I was afraid that someone was going to judge me, or I was going to let my dad down, or all these things. And I just, in many ways, my upbringing was a blessing, because I didn't really care to let anybody down. I didn't really care what anybody thought of me. People were already kind of thinking what they were going to think about me. The guy with the hoodie in school smelling like cigarettes, like they already had their ideas of who I was. And so risk was easy. It was super easy. And in many ways, the way I grew up were a massive blessing. I'm glad. I maybe never would have joined the military in that situation.
Yeah, and speaking of that, so let's talk about that. So
Yeah.
right out of high school, what's your senior year in high school? You get this burning desire. What's your next steps? What's the next move you make that progresses you towards where you're at now?
Well, we talked about the scholarship last time. That I had this big scholarship that we never talked about anything.
No,
This was the first
there
podcast
is no. We
ever
talked
had.
about anything last time.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was the first part of this podcast. The last time.
Oh,
we
that
said
was in the mirror before I came here. I was trying to get prepared to talk to you. Yeah. But anyway, so I found this, literally, bro. It felt so God sent, and it was, but not in the way I thought. I found an application on the floor of the Smith Scholarship. Just stepped on application in the hallway, in the science hall or whatever of Guntersville High School, and it was like, a scholarship for kids with great grades, tons of community service experience, or community service hours, and they had a hard upbringing. And I was like, oh God, this is me. This is for me. This is exactly what you want for me. This is gonna work out. Free school, free books, free everything, free computer to whatever school you want in Alabama. Beautiful. There's my solution. I fit the boxes perfectly. We had rounds and rounds of essays and all this and interviews, and out of like 6,000 people, I got in the top 13 and only 12 got it, and I was the one. And so it was right before awards day. I've always been like, burn the bridges. This is the thing I was going to do. Mm-hmm. I didn't apply for scholarships at Snead. Could have got a full ride there. Couldn't afford the books anyways. But I didn't apply for anything but that scholarship. That was it. That's all I did. And I didn't get it. I was the one outlier. And dude, I remembered I didn't even go to school for like 2 days before awards day. I was just crying my eyes out. I was like, I cannot believe. And that was still like one of those moments where I had little glimpse of faith, and then it would things wouldn't happen, and I sort of still hadn't found God at that point. But I joined the military, and I'm glad I did. I didn't want to. I never wanted to. A lot of people think that's something I hang my hat on. I did not want to do that ever. Even not even as a little kid, never. But I had to, because I wanted to go to school for free at a big D1 school, and so that's what I did. And I became a truck driver, signed an 8-year contract, and they agreed to pay for my college. And that's how I ended up going down to South Alabama on a full ride, basically, and for 4 years before I dropped out.
What was your degree in?
Economics.
Economics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I had already started reading these books about investing, and I learned about Wall Street and the idea of compound interest and all those things. Like the gears were starting to turn of like, oh, I can make money while I sleep. So I was just obsessed. It's like, if you want to make money, learn the economy and know how it works, and you're never going to have to worry about money ever again. So I was very, very excited to get down there and start learning.
It's kind of interesting to hear how all these little bits and pieces throughout your life of things that, I mean, at this point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point in time, you had no idea you were going to become a real estate agent. But these little bitty things that happen between high school and now played into what has made you into the success that you are today. Yeah. So anyway, you get that college degree from South Alabama. Signed that 8-year contract. And
went to school, didn't get the degree.
Oh, you went and didn't get the degree.
Yeah.
So what happened there?
Well, I learned, and I started learning about compound interest and learning about time and investments and how get them early. And I was like, what the heck am I sitting in this classroom for? I know what investing means. I just need money. And I was like, okay, even if I graduate with this degree, I could go to New York and be an economist and probably not even have like a great job for another 5-10 years. I'm like, I don't have that kind of time. So what I did was I got my secret security clearance, and I applied for so many government jobs overseas because I also was learning about risk, and I found out that jobs pay you more for risk. So I was like, what kind of jobs are hiring in combat zones? And so I applied for all those. Hope they don't even watch this podcast, but I did tweak my resume in a few ways to where I could get those jobs. And luckily I found a nice, cheap, small startup contract company that picked me up. And I went over there, and I dropped out of school that day. They called me. I was in class, and I answered. I'm like, hello. And they're like, this is Bravura Technologies, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, did I get the job? And they're like, yes. And I said, give me a call back in 5. And I closed my book, walked out of that big auditorium class, called her. I said, hey, I'm going to drop out of school right now and I'm on my way. Like, let me know when my flight is. And that was it. I dropped out my senior year. I think I had 1.5 probably semesters left of college before I got my degree. And I came home and told my mom and my brother, I'm like, yo, I'm out. Sorry.
What did they say about it?
They're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're going overseas to fly spy balloons for the government? You're going to get your head cut off. That sounds like a scam. And I was like, it is. No, well, how much you make? And I'm like, insert 6 figures here. And I'm like, they still thought it was a scam or whatever. But yeah, I went to Arizona and trained. And next thing you knew, boom, I'm in Afghanistan. I've never even been out of the country. And there I am finally making that money. I just didn't really know what to do with it at the time.
Wow. So flying spy balloons. I don't even know how you come back to real estate and economics after that. That seems like so different, such different industries, but or fields. But so what about after that? After spy balloons, how do you end up in real estate?
Well, man, I fell in love with it. I loved it. I love being out there because it's just you. And it's so quiet, except for when rockets and gunshots and all that. But that doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. But it was more quiet. I had more time. I had less people around me. And it was like a time chamber of me and all these books, as many books as I could afford. And I had read like 100 books over there. And my brain was just turning. And I'm like, I cannot wait to take this money and get back home and get to work. I tried my life in the stock market at that time, lost my freaking tail, made a bunch of money, but lost my tail eventually and decided maybe that wasn't it. And that's sort of when my brain leaned into real estate. And around my second year of being over there, I bought my first rental property in Owens Crossroads. Literally flew home on vacation, closed on it. Tenants were already in it, stayed, blah, blah, blah. Came back and then once I started seeing like the little updates on the Zillow estimates and everything of what that house was doing and the growth and my rents were starting to go up a little bit, I was like, oh my God, like I have found this is my thing. Like the stocks, I was too emotional. I was taking all that money that I worked so hard for over there, being away from family, and just dumping it into like penny stocks, like crazy stuff, and losing my tail. And I was like, I'm clearly too emotional for this type of investing. So that's, real estate's slower, less, more illiquid. I kind of had my hands tied. And once I found out what real estate could do for me and then I could use leverage, I was sold, man. But like I said, I never wanted to leave overseas. After my third year, I had really worked my way up. I was well respected within the company, and Joe Biden shut down the capital of Afghanistan, and we didn't get a heads up. They're just like, hey, you lost your job. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait a second. I'm 22. I don't have a degree. The only thing on my resume is Cracker Barrel, top of the river, and spy balloon operator in Afghanistan. No one's going to hire me. And so I came home and no one wanted to hire me. I got a small stint for about a year as a training, on Zoom and things, training people how to do the work I was doing overseas. But then eventually that fizzled out. That contract fizzled out. And so I'm sitting here, I'm applying for ADT security. Like I was going through training and I was going to go in and install doorknobs and alarm systems. And I'm like, man, I was making 6 figures and now I'm going back to like $15 an hour. And I'm like terrified. Like I have a rental property. At that point, I have my own primary home. Absolutely freaking out. And then I was like, well, I guess I'll get my real estate license. Never, ever wanted to be a realtor. Didn't like realtors. Didn't like how just fake the industry felt. As an investor in general, we don't really like realtors. We don't need them. Don't see the use in them. Now I do. But man, once I got my license and things started rolling, I am home. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I had no idea that it would take going literally all over the world to find my passion. But this is it. This is where I'm going to be for the next 40, 50 years.
That's awesome. And I kind of want to maybe gives you a little bit of an opportunity for a shameless plug. And I don't necessarily mean it for that, but let's use it for that too. Why? Think back to your investor mind. And for somebody who is knowledgeable in the real estate market and somebody who, just like you, had bought a rental property or something like that, if you're talking to that person, why do they need a realtor? What value does a real estate agent bring to the table for somebody who is involved in the real estate market enough to kind of know what prices and values are, and kind of knows enough about how the process works? What value do you bring to the table as a realtor, for somebody like that? Think back to when you thought that realtors, you didn't need them. What would you say to that guy?
Well, you don't think you need a realtor until you do. You think you know everything until you find out you don't. And I bought my first house. I'll just use me as an example. I bought my first house, and there was a metal shed in the back, and I didn't include it in the contract, and he straight up hauled it off. So in my mind, that's my shed. It's on the property. It's a little small metal shed. No, he hauled it off. It wasn't in the ground or anything. It was just kind of sitting on blocks there. And realtors are there to help you know the ins and outs of the law, and what the state requires, and things that you need to add into contracts, and understanding people when people are bluffing you. When we just kind of know, like, we do it every day. We understand how other realtors work, and if you don't do it all the time. So as an investor, I was ignorant, and I didn't think I needed a realtor because I was already in the market. I'm tapped in. I know everything. No realtor knows everything, but no investor knows everything. But regular people that work 9-to-5 jobs and have multiple kids, you go out there and try to buy a house yourself, and you're gonna feel a lot worse pain than I did when he hauled that shop off. I mean, you may end up in a serious lawsuit. You may get scammed out of tens of thousands of dollars. It's just there's I could go into that for forever. But us maximizing your outcome, helping you keep your emotions low so that you don't make bad decisions just based off emotions rather than logic. There's so many different things that a realtor are so important for that I didn't realize just as an investor. Not everybody's an investor.
Well, I wanted to give you that opportunity to say that, because I do think I've been susceptible to that. I think a lot of times I think about stuff. I'm like, is there really, for somebody who is smart enough and knows the market a little bit, and knows kind of the process, is there really a use for a realtor? And I've come to the conclusion at this point that there is value in a realtor. That's why you'll see that every successful investor does have a realtor friend that they use often. But I wanted others to hear what the value is, what the value that you guys bring to the table, to help with those transactions.
And a lot of it really is the emotion side. I mean, just like, it is a very, very difficult thing to do when you're in the middle of buying a house and you've never bought a house before, and you've got this huge 6-figure number that you're about to spend on something, and you're looking at that huge monthly payment. It's really hard to just think fear. And sometimes we're there to just be like, not firefighters, but fear fighters. We're just here to help you explain, like, help you stay based and remember why you got into this in the first place, and keep you on more of a long-term idea frame than that short-term, just bad day at work you had that you're like, I'm out, I'm done, I'm backing out of the house, I don't want it. And you making decisions you're going to regret later on. A good realtor will keep you from making bad decisions like that.
Well, yeah, and I completely agree with you. I see it a lot on our side. We deal with a lot of real estate agents and mortgage lenders, and I think for 99% or more of people, a realtor is absolutely not just a good idea, but a necessity to make sure you're gonna not get burned on something.
And you see all the TV shows like Selling Sunset and everything, and like those people, I don't know. I've never been those kind of people. Like I'm not gonna get all polished and polish my Ferrari before I show up to a show, and I got my suit on, and you can just hear in their voice like, "Hey, good to see you." I'm like, "What's up?" Like, glad to see. I don't know. It just never felt real to me. But now that I'm in the industry, I get to meet people that really are really good people, really good realtors here locally, and smart people, man. So much smarter than me. And it gave me a whole lot more respect for just the industry as a whole.
I think that's a good segue to talk about what's made you successful, or what I think has made you successful. The main contributor is social media. And what you just talked about with realtors getting real polished up and shining their nice brand new car when they roll up in the driveway. There's this image of old, and it's not just real estate agents. It's bankers, it is insurance agents, it is any financial services, attorneys, it is anybody that's in the professional services field. Look back 30, 40 years ago, and that's everybody in that type of professional service field is, you got to wear a suit, you got to wear a jacket, maybe even put on a tie to go to work because you want to look prim and proper and polished when you get there. I don't know if social media changed this. I don't know if I credit social media changing this, but certainly culture has changed since social media has come out, where I think people now are not looking for perfection to place their trust in with who they're wanting to do business with.
Yeah.
I'm firsthand of that. I'm not going to, which I do. I mean, sometimes I wear slacks or whatever, but I'm not going to show up in a jacket. Never do I show up to work in a jacket. I've got a hat on when I go to the office, which most people would say that's disrespectful or, unprofessional or whatever. People don't care about that anymore, man.
Yeah.
People, and it's not just this younger generation. I think people are craving in this world of busyness and all kinds of digital media, TV shows, Netflix series, all this stuff where you've got all this artificial out there. People are absolutely craving just genuine. They want to know the person they're doing business with, and they want to know that they're a real person that they can actually connect with. Because there's so much fake out there now and so much trying to be somebody that I think people are shying away from that. And they're like, I don't want somebody that pretends to be perfect. I want somebody that I know I can trust and that's genuine. And when they speak from a place of truth, not from a place of, I want to sell you into using me. And I think exactly what you're talking about is why you've been so successful.
Yeah, I think when social media first started coming around, like Instagram and everything, people were like, wait, we can make people think that we're doing much better than we are. But now internet and social media is so much stronger now, you can get sniffed out so fast.
Yes.
And
people sniff out bullcrap faster than anything. You can pretend all you want to. You can post whatever you want to and pretend, but people feel it. That's why we're doing this right here. People can tell when you're not being your genuine self, no matter how hard you try to be fake. Yeah,
like as far as like people are like, I want to do more social media, but I don't really know how to go about it. I'm trying to think like, what should I post? What should I see? That's your problem. Stop thinking about what you should post. Stop trying to plan out your post. Don't have a memo filled with ideas. Like just pick up your phone and whatever you're thinking, be you. Yes. And don't force yourself to post it. If there's something you just genuinely, I don't pick my phone up and just make stuff up. I don't write anything down. I don't have a memo pad full of ideas. If I'm like today on the way here, we got outbid. One of my clients got outbid, and I picked up my phone and I shared that experience. Like I don't know. I just want it to be real. So I usually, I can feel it. Like I get this warm feeling when I have an idea or I learn something, I'm reading a book, or do the same thing when I'm reading, I'm in the scripture, something hits me, I'm picking up my phone and I'm doing it. And luckily for me, it accidentally became a habit for really a decade before I ever became a realtor. And I didn't know that it was going to affect my business the way it has. But people are craving the real stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. When you stutter, don't crop it out, leave it in there. When you look like crap, who cares? So does everybody else. Leave that on there. I don't know. Like you see people, they'll pick up their phone and they'll start recording. You'll see them looking over to the side at some memo pad and they're reading like they got popcorn reading in school. And people, like you said, people can feel that.
Yep.
And they want somebody that's going to have the answers and be themselves and be there for them, readily available. Not something like, hold on, let me put my mask on real quick before we get started.
Sure. Here. And just like what you're talking about, I mean, I'm not listen, if you read off a teleprompter or read notes to try to help you through the video, and that's what you have to do to put something out. Putting something out is far better than not doing anything at all. So
yes.
I'm not knocking it, but the quicker you can put that teleprompter down or those notes down and not read a script, the quicker you will see much more interaction with your post, because people can tell. It don't even matter if they see your eyes cutting or not. I mean, for sure if they do, but it doesn't matter if they see your eyes cutting or not. When you sound like you were talking like this and it sounds very rehearsed, people feel that you're just reading off a script or at least memorizing what you're going to say. Like just pick up the phone and shoot the video and say it. And if it doesn't sound good, that's fine. Restart it. Do it again. And over time with practice, you will learn to speak on camera and you just do one take. With no cuts, and you can do 60-second videos with no cuts on that. You've done extremely well with that. I think probably better than anybody that I can think of off the top of my head, you portray your genuine self extremely well, which, dude, I didn't know you from Adam until I saw your stuff on Facebook. And I was like, I don't know anything about this guy, but I know he's genuine.
Yeah.
I know that he's his real self on social media. And there is so much trust that comes along with that. And I genuinely think that that's why you are as successful as you are.
Yeah. And since I went straight to college out of high school, and then I was going overseas for 3 years, and when I came home, I worked from home, so I was kind of just stuffed away in my house like a hermit crab, doing little PowerPoint presentations for the government and all that. I had no idea that all the posting I did was really reaching people. Because, I mean, you see, like on Snapchat, okay, you had 150 people see it. Let's be honest, probably 3 people actually watched it. So, you know, I was expecting maybe I had like a group of 10 of people that'll share Max at Remax and happy. Dude, when I got my license and the calls I started getting, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. I've been an agent since September of 2023. I can't believe what's happened. I cannot. I was happy to make 50 grand a year. I was happy to sell, 5-10 houses a year. That would have been awesome. You never, and I'm a huge dreamer. I make huge goals that are scary to me, but I never would have expected any of this. I had no idea. I mean, I've had clients that I had never met call me. We're at a showing, and they were like, "Man, you still in stocks?" I'm like, "Brother, how do you know I used to buy stocks?" "Well, I used to follow your stuff, man, even way back whenever you were in high school, man." I'm like, "There's no way that when I picked my phone up as an 18-year-old kid and I was yapping about stocks that I lost money in, by the way, that people still remembered that." No, dude, I never would have probably even wanted to buy a house if it wasn't for you. I'm like, what? There's no way. I had no idea. It totally took me by storm.
That's crazy. How many transactions did you do last year? So hold on, for some context. You've been a real estate agent for a little over a year now, right? When was your 1 year mark?
1 year from license date.
No, let's say
my first full year was 2024.
Okay.
This 2024 to 20, because I mean, you just don't know how to tie your shoes there when you first get your license. You don't even know how to log into the MLS. So, but yeah, my first full year from 24 to 25, I ended up doing about 50 transactions.
That's crazy.
Close to 10 million. I'm not sure the exact numbers. Very close to 10 million though, which is I didn't know, because you see social media. There's people in California doing 50 million. I didn't know how big and how special that was until other realtors were starting to kind of tell me. My broker was kind of telling me, and I'm still sort of in shock of how it all came about.
That's crazy, man. And that's fantastic that you're able to do that. Would you agree? Would you say that social media is probably the main contributor to that?
It's all of it. And I will say this, I am genuinely, like, my growth as a realtor has been stunted because of how blessed I've been with the business I have. There's so many ways to generate leads. You can buy Zillow leads. You can do geo prospecting where you circle a neighborhood and slam them with postcards that nobody wants to look at. You can cold call. You can go to events. I don't do anything but social media. That's it. Now, if I meet somebody in public, I want to impact them. I want to make them laugh. I want them to just feel. And I don't do this necessarily consciously, but I try to impact everybody I can. I'll share the Lord with them. I'll do whatever I can to where they remember me. But it's not 50 home buyers a year or home sellers a year or whatever. That's not that many. So it has to be social media. It's the only thing it can be. But I have been like, social media was like, I don't know. My followers were kind of like, I wanted them to see what I had found. We talked about, no, we didn't. No, like the idea of the allegory of the cave, or they're in a cave and there's these people, and they've only seen, there's a fire behind these people, and then there's somebody behind the fire, like doing hand signals or whatever. And so the only thing these people have ever seen is what they've been able to, what the world has shown them. And one guy comes out and he goes outside the cave and he sees the sun for the first time. He sees the clouds, the grass, the birds, and he's like, holy crap. So he runs back in the cave. He's like, guys, get out of here, guys. And they're like, shut up, we're trying to watch. He's like, guys, there's sunlight out here. It's beautiful out here. There's an amazing life out here. So I was the guy that left the cave, and I'm trying to go back. And social media was me trying to get in front of as many people as I could, whether it be the 100 followers I had in 2016 or not, and be like, guys, there is a life out here that you can live. And Broke Max Brandon from Mountain View Apartments can become a millionaire by 30. He can have rental properties. He can do all these things. He can give back. The opportunities are endless. And so that was literally me just wanting to wake people up. And I know not everybody has to go that route. Other people are very happy with where they're at. with the jobs and the family they have, and they're content, and that's amazing because I respect contentment, and I hope that I can find some more in my life. But I had just found the thing, man. I had found my way out of that terrible life that I had growing up, and I wanted everybody, even if it was just one person, to also find that. There's like an aha moment I had my senior year of high school where I'm like, oh my God, like life isn't hell, and there are ways to live an amazing life. And once I found that, dude, that's where social media started with me. It wasn't me trying to get business.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care how many people didn't like me, and a lot of people didn't like me. A lot of people didn't like me. They didn't want to hear this guy who made no money, who didn't even graduate college, who just some broke kid from Mountain View Apartments. They didn't want to hear me talk about how rich I was going to be one day. It was just annoying. And but luckily I didn't. I guess I just didn't know how many people actually did hear me, and how many people really found hope in the message that I was. It was every day, like every day, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat for a decade. So new realtors come in and they're like, man, I'm ready to be a realtor. And I have to like let them know what I did is not normal. I'm very blessed, and I'm reaping rewards of something I didn't even know I was sowing for a decade. So just be aware of that. So this isn't normal what I've been able to do this year.
This is not a year's worth of work.
No.
Come into 50 transactions.
Yeah.
It's 10 years
Yes.
worth of building up to this, that developed these skills, that developed this knowledge.
Yeah.
And then it was a year worth of execution.
And getting into the genuine part of the social media, it's not. I think sometimes people just get nervous, and that's hard to get behind the camera when you're nervous. I kind of lost the nerves because I had read so many books. I mean, like 100 books on just straight finance and real estate. You go to my bedroom right now, there's like 50 books on real estate before I ever even knew I was going to become a realtor. So when I pick my phone up and start talking, it's because I know what I'm saying. It's because I've read the best of the best in the world explaining it to me on those pages. And I think that also, they believe what I'm saying because I believe what I'm saying.
Yeah, knowledge brings confidence.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's something that it takes time, but it also takes discipline. You get to a point where you start to just go about your day and go about your certain tasks, and you stop growing. I'm guilty of this. I've done this here lately. I haven't read many books lately, and I've got to get back on it. I've got one sitting on my desk that I'm going to start, but you have to constantly be gaining knowledge and constantly be reading, because that knowledge is what brings you the confidence, not just for social media. I mean, definitely for that. But that confidence bleeds into your entire life and career. It gives you the confidence to talk to your clients. It gives you the confidence to deal with adversity and deal with an uncomfortable situation or an uncomfortable conversation. It gives you confidence that you just exude confidence that then your team or your employees or your coworkers or whatever it may be in your organization, they start to feel that. You can't compete with somebody who has tremendously more knowledge than you as on the confidence scale.
Yep.
And so exactly what you're saying, believe it or not, I had a guy reach out to me. We were buddies in high school, and he went to Gunnersville. I went to Albertville. You know his brother. I'm not going to say who it is, but he reached out to me maybe a year and a half ago or so, and he was like, "Dude, it is so funny to see quiet little Jaylon that used to sit in the corner and not talk to anybody. I'm naturally an introvert, man. I hate being on camera. Hate being talking into a microphone. Naturally an introvert. He's like, it's so funny to see tiny little quiet Jaylon that used to sit in a corner be on my Facebook feed talking on a video with not just video but audio. He's like, dude, we couldn't even get you to record like an audio recording for church. Like, that 5 people would see. Now 5,000 people will see it, and you're just out there just talking like it's normal. But you're exactly right. It doesn't come like that. That wasn't something that came naturally. It came through the process of I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm confident in what I'm saying, and the only way I gain that confidence is because I have the knowledge now. I have the experience now to say this is what you should do. This is what I know, and again, that people see that. People can feel that confidence. Nervousness goes away once you suppress it with confidence.
Yeah, and education's obviously a big part of it. But with people like you and me, I think we can both say for each other that the passion behind it, you're very passionate about what you do. I would never in my life be passionate about insurance. You may never be in your life passionate about real estate, but like I have this very, very hot burning passion for real estate. It saved my life. It changed the trajectory of my entire family tree forever. For my kids, my grandkids, great grandkids, they're all going to be okay because of this portfolio that I'm building of this beautiful asset called real estate. And so when I bought my first house, it's deeper for me. It was deeper than a house. If I could own a piece of the planet, no government legislation could take it from me. No person could take it from me unless I didn't pay my bills. But got it. Once you buy a good deal, you don't have to worry about that. But when I bought that house, it was the first time ever that my shoulders had ever gone down. Like I lived like this as a little kid. I was just always just terrified of the world and like of something bad happening because every day just something awful was happening. We're just living in awful. But when I bought that house and I could put my backpack down, living out of that little backpack as a kid, running to all my friends' house. When things got bad at home, I always ran to my buddy's house and just wanted to stay with them, go make good friends with all the rich guys in school. So that way I can go eat a nice home-cooked meal at their house, When I put that backpack down, pulled that toiletry bag that I had been living out of forever and put it down on my own double vanity there. Not to flex, double vanity. And I could lock that door. I only had the furniture that he had left me in that house, the guy I bought the house from, but I was like, holy crap, like this is the first time I felt like safe. And so real estate, aside from the fact that it can make you rich without even trying, it's like that's the first time I was safe. The first time that I called the shots and that the world wasn't beating me up. Like, I don't know, and that's why I named my business Dark Horse Realty, because the definition of dark horse is someone whom little knows about that goes on to do great things. And so I named my company that, and I feel that real estate can give power back to regular people. If you can just get over that 580 hump credit score, get you just a decent job. I mean, that's all you really need is like a 600 credit score, get you a decent job, even partner with some buddies, whatever you got to do. But if you can get that first house, man, it's like you go from, you just jump so many social classes. Like your worst case scenario is that you have a door that you can lock.
Dude, I know some guys, I know this to be true, not from my own experience. I've made the mistake of not buying a house yet, but I know some guys that about 2 years younger than me, when they graduated, they didn't really know what they wanted to do. A couple of them went to school, a couple of them got a job, just some ordinary job. But because they didn't know what they wanted to do, they saved and saved and saved, and they continued to save. And over the last year and a half, they've started putting their money in real estate. The first thing they did was they went and found this piece of property that everybody else would have just considered a piece of crap property. Like the dirt wasn't good for anything, had trees all over it. They went and bought like I said, they saved up. They went and bought I don't want to call it a piece of junk because they might watch this, but it was a piece of junk, mini excavator. Yeah. And they bought that piece of property for $3,000, cleared the property off, made it look prettier than what it was, and they had a buyer within, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, had a buyer for $17,500. And it's just these three buddies that have gone in together. They put in $1,000 a piece, bought that piece of property, and now they've just more than 5x their income, or not income, more than 5x their investment in 3 weeks. Yeah. And then they took that money and they've done that. They've done that rinse and repeat. They've gone to courthouse auctions and bought one piece of property for $12,000, and then now they've sold it for 60 something. And it's like, dude, and I've heard some people, some whispers of, it's just luck. It's not luck. No, that's real estate. No. You do your job to find the deals. You go scour marketplace and go scour the listings and do your work to drive out there as soon as it's listed and go look at it. And there's money to be made and wealth to be built in real estate, and it doesn't take a lot. It's not. See, I always had this. This was my fault. Is I always had this idea of like, well, I have to start with a house. I have to start with a primary residence. And so I'm sitting here thinking, I've got to save up a down payment. I don't want PMI. I don't want mortgage insurance on it. So I want 15-20% down. And it's like right out of high school, if I would have just taken the money I was making and spent $3,000, $5,000 on a piece of property and then made sure it was a good buy, talked to somebody like you, make sure it was a good buy, I'd have been in a much different position now than I am right now.
Bro, the crazy thing about real estate is that you don't have to do anything to it to make the money. Like if I said, let's say I have $100,000 right here, and I'm trying to think of how I can word this. It's basically like I have $100,000, you have $150,000, and I say, you want to trade? And you're like, yeah. And then you trade. Now I have $150,000, I did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you go buy a $150,000 house for $100,000, you just made $50,000 just from the paper, from signing the paper. And I don't know, that idea just like grew in my mind. I'm like, there's no way that's a real thing. But when I bought my first house in Owens Crossroads, I paid $127 for it, I think. And I owe maybe $90 on it now. That house today, I bought it when I was 21 years old. I'm 27. That house today is worth like $400,000. And how long it would take me to save that amount of money, that difference?
Yes, yep.
It would take you a lifetime to save $300,000. It's insane. But I didn't do anything. I bought this thing that was hard to sort of, like, it's not like a stock I can pull up my phone and just hit sell, blah, 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 and it's done. It forces me to kind of sit on it, sit on my hands. And I accidentally got wealthy from real estate. And anybody can do that because you're so busy with your day-to-day and you're going to work, you know, taking your kids to school, sports, all that. You don't even think about it. And then 10 years down the road, you're like, are we wealthy? Where did that come from? It's the coolest thing ever.
Right.
So then multiply that by a few houses and then things start to get super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a huge proponent of real estate. Huge proponent of, just investing in general. That's what this podcast is about. Get guys like you on here to inspire some people to get into, just do something, you know?
Yeah.
Now let's talk about, I heard you mention it earlier. You gave credit to God and then said, but at that time I didn't realize that's what that was because I wasn't a man of faith then. So what does that journey look like? I know you're very public about that. What does that journey look like for you? What's your faith journey? How'd you end up where you are now?
That's the coolest thing. That's the coolest thing because although, I grew up poor, life was hard, and I thought, okay, get rich, become a millionaire, everything's going to be okay. You're not going to feel this sick, awful feeling that you feel every day when you wake up, no matter how good or how bad your day is. There's something missing, and not having my dad in the picture, I thought maybe that was it. Well, can't change that. So I guess I'll get rich and fill it full of money. I'll fill this deep, dark void, fill it full of money. So then I came home, bought a couple houses, bought more houses, got into creative financing, bought even more houses. Look back, I started doing my numbers. I'm like, I'm 26 years old. I'm on paper a millionaire. And I am so depressed. I was like, I just, in my mind, I thought I would have this big party and mom and dad would show up and everybody would be so happy to see that he's a millionaire now.
It's the thing that was the thing that you chased early on. Like you said, from very early on, you were chasing that constant. And you finally made it there. Yes.
Money was my God. Money was my hope. I'll tell you, man, you make money your God, you're going to find out real in a really, really hard way that it's not God. And so then I ran into comfort for the first time. Discomfort, in the fire, I felt good. Like I'm used to it. I'm used to basically living in hell day in and day out. But comfort was the scariest thing for me because I'm like, wait a minute, I can sit in this house and do nothing. I didn't have to grind anymore. So then I kind of slowed down and then I ended up in the bars and had issues with women and I was just trying to fill that void even more, hurting people in the process, hurting innocent people in the process and getting drunk every night and blowing all my money and doing this. And eventually I met Hannah, the girl I'm engaged with now. And that dude still hadn't fixed his voids and she knew it. And she's a strong woman. And she picked up on it and our relationship eventually fell apart. And I'm just sitting here like, dude, look, I'm a millionaire on paper. I've got this amazing woman. My family's okay. I don't really have anything to be upset about. Why do I feel like this? Why am I pushing good friendships away and ruining, like, I know in my mind, like, that's the girl I'm supposed to marry and it's just not happening. There's just something. I was like, something's got to happen here. So, we split up and I went to therapy and that helped. It did help. It really did. But it's still something just wasn't right. My buddy Tristan gave me the Bible. and was like, bro, I think you should just read it. Because I had a lot of misconceptions about God. Growing up in a household where God was laughed at. It was like, that's not a thing we believe in this house. I'm like, okay, cool. We won't believe in God. Cool. And then one night, man, I don't know what it was. I was just so tired of trying to fill that void and not being able to do it. I had come so far. A decade-long journey of thinking that I was going to fix it once I became a millionaire. I was going to fix it once I found a beautiful woman. And just nothing was fixing it. I picked that thing up, man. And there was some verse, I don't know what it was, but something just hit me. And it was like, he who is full or he who is fed tramples the honeycomb or something. And I took that as like, I don't know. I just felt this overwhelming sense of guilt of, man, you've got everything you ever could have asked for. And I flashed back to my head of that little kid, man, hearing his mom screaming and like the domestic violence and all this. I'm in my bedroom. I'm just kind of got the pillow over my ears. I'm trying not to hear what's going on in the next room. I'm like, dude, we've come so far. And I'm sitting around like feeling sorry for myself. I'm over here feeling like I don't have peace. And I've come so far. And I was like, there's something missing. And at that point, I was like, if there's a God, like, I need you so bad because I've tried everything. I went all the way around the world. I traveled. I'd been to 15, 17 countries, whatever. I went to Peru and I did ayahuasca with shamans in the Amazon rainforest trying to figure out.
What in the world is ayahuasca? What is that?
It's a plant medicine that basically they call it an ego killer and it strips your ego away and it's like the strongest DMT of all time. But like the fact that I went that far.
Yeah.
With these Native Americans in the Amazon rainforest to try to figure out what I was missing when all I had to do was call him to God. Because that night I was like, God, I broke down on my kitchen table. I'll never forget where I was and how I felt. And I just started crying. I was like, please, like, I can't do this without you. There's something I'm missing. And only you have it. Only a God would be able to fill this void inside of me. And it was like, bro, just like that, so many tears just poured out of my face. And I felt the Spirit. And that's one thing I didn't even understand, even at that moment, because I hadn't been in the Word and the Scripture. I didn't understand the Holy Spirit, but it overcame me. And it was like, that thing's gone. That itch to go out to the bar the next day and go get hammered and chase women around, it was all gone. Like everything. And it was like, I didn't even have to go to Afghanistan. I didn't have to miss the last few years of my grandmother's life, who was my best friend, because I wanted to go make money. I didn't have to chase this thing this whole time. All I had to do was lay myself at God's feet and say, look, take me. Like, I need you. And man, I got Hannah back. We're engaged now, which was a very hard journey trying to get her back. I guess she felt the change too, because there was a change. And when you're saved, when you're truly saved, you can tell by how someone changes. Mm-hmm. I can feel it by when I wake up, how much lighter I am on my feet. I'm more content. I don't need for really anything. I have dreams, there's goals, but I don't really need for anything. But that feeling is just gone. And I don't know how to explain it except for God. And it's not something I feel like I really can explain. I try to other friends that are going through the same things, but it's truly beautiful. It's an amazing thing.
So just as a recap, something I want to highlight there is it's crazy the desire that the human flesh, that the human soul has for Christ ultimately, but there's this desire, you don't know what it is until you find that. There's this desire that your body has to fill that hole. And that's a common thing that you'll hear in several people's testimonies is there's this hole that I was trying to fill. And the ends of the earth of you going and trying to do things with these tribes and on this constant journey to fill that void, and then only for you to realize that Christ was the one thing that you didn't even have to go. You didn't have to get on a plane to go do it. You could just sit in your living room, and Christ is the one thing that fills that void. What was it that ultimately led you to that? I mean, I know you said you read that piece of scripture, but what do you feel like that it was Christ revealed himself to you and approached you and kind of drew you in? Is that what that process looks like?
Well, it's funny. When you're being refined, you're mad at God. You're like, why would you put me in hell? why would you make me have to carry the weight, the burden of having my brother on my back my whole life? I've never felt like I could just focus on me. Like I was always like, I have to save this guy's life. I have to save my family's life. Like, why me? Like, I'm just a kid. I didn't ask for this. Why do I have to be the guy? Because it was hard, man. All the choosing to pick up and drop out of school, and even to sign the army, sign the line and join the army. All those things were so hard. There were a lot of nights I spent just bawling my eyes out in my bedroom on that crappy, springy bed. Just like, why me, dude? Like, why is my dad not in my life? Why all these things? And so I was just, I guess, mad at God for the longest time. And now I see what I've been able to accomplish, and I look back and I thank him for all the hell he put me through. I'm like, dude, you were prepping me. You put me in the worst situations possible so I could be absolutely the most battle-tested Christian that you could find, which there are a lot more. I mean, you go to Africa, yes, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, he was just preparing me. That's all it was. He was preparing me to be one of his strongest soldiers, and I didn't realize that until just recently. And I'm like, he's been here the whole time. Because now you look back at all these different moments, man, where he was there, and I just totally wasn't paying attention. There was a time where I just wanted a good night's rest. I didn't have a box spring. It was just a mattress on the floor, and the springs were sticking out of it, sort of deal, and it was super uncomfortable. And it was just a really low point in my childhood. And I walked to Walmart and I stole a mattress topper and some pillows and some sheets, some stuff that kids should not be trying to steal. Anyways, they were arresting me, made me watch myself on the camera, were putting me in the cop car, and Warren Jones. Do you know Warren Jones?
I know that name for some reason. I don't
Really,
know that I've
really,
ever
really
met
good,
Warren.
strong Christian man. Him and his wife found me. I kind of knew him. I was friends with their son Drew. Growing up in high school, I kind of knew him, but I wasn't like close with him or anything. But they like told the guys or whatever, hey, let this kid go. And they're really, really heavy in the church, ministers, very, very good Christian people. And they got me out of that situation, out of the handcuffs. And I never once thought maybe that was God. I was this close to screwing my whole life up. And for whatever reason, the police complied, let me out, let me go. And that's just one of so many different things. I mean, Stephen Swords of Victory Baptist Church, he's had his hand over me his whole life, making sure like our bills and stuff were paid and things like that. And sort of being a mentor in my life, helping me become a strong man. Never once thought maybe God put him in my life for a reason during that time. So God was with me through people my whole life, and I never, ever gave him credit until recently because I was so busy being pissed off at him, or even so busy like just trying to save my family, and I never had the time to slow down and think about it. So this was just sort of this last year, January of this last year, 2024, was the first time I had ever given God, or I guess introduced to God for the first time.
Wow. What kind of impact have you seen so far? And I want to be careful how I ask this, because I think a lot of times that God can become a genie in a bottle a little bit. And I'm not necessarily asking you what kind of positive impact God has had on your life as far as finances or, life's easier now or whatever, but what sort of spiritual impact have you seen since? I mean, this is fairly new, right? You're fairly new Christian. What kind of impact have you seen? Spiritual impact.
The appreciation. I guess it's love. So one thing I talked about with my therapist was like, I never saw a healthy form of love growing up. I never knew where to find what that looked like. I didn't know how to love Hannah. I didn't know how to keep Hannah. Like, how do you keep a good woman if you don't know what love is? I've never been loved properly. I don't know. And I had no idea that there's a big, thick, multi-thousand-page book that tells you how to be the best lover on this planet. And it gave me just a deeper appreciation of love in general, but also just people. I was reading this morning in Corinthians about, the body of Christ, and, it's how different it is. Like, you got the rich guys who can afford to help people. You got the janitor who may only just be cleaning the school, only that, but he's impacting his kids every day with the way he interacts with them and the way he drops little tidbits on them. And like everybody from all, and you mentioned the genie in the bottle thing. That's something I realized was that, I don't know, man, I'm no more important as the person under the bridge who's a Christian. I'm no more important than them, because they may be impacting the kingdom of God in a way that I can't, or that I'm not supposed to. God has different spiritual gifts that He gives us, and it all looks different. We look different. Whatever He wants for our lives looks different. So I don't want people to be discouraged when they see, oh, Max prayed for money and he's making more money. Well, maybe so, but it's not just to give me more money. Maybe he wants me to help people and help me in this way. Maybe my spiritual gift is that I'm so good with numbers and I'm so good with garnering attention that I can be a light for the kingdom and I can help people. I can feed people and clothe and house people. That could be my thing. That's what God put me on this earth to do. And it looks different for everybody. So I guess I didn't understand, like, growing up, praying for certain things and them not happening, but realizing it did happen, just not the way I wanted it to. So, there were moments in my life where I prayed. I didn't really understand God or know who he was, but I had prayed, and when it didn't happen for me immediately or it didn't happen the way I wanted to, I'd screw God. I don't even care about him. He's not real, clearly, or he would have took me out of that situation. No, there's the idea of faith has been solidified, trusting that his plan is so much bigger and so much more powerful and so much smarter than anything I could even possibly think of.
Wow. And, going back to the genie in the bottle thing, let's go back to that too. Because I think, again, I want to be careful how I say this because I don't know how theologically sound some of the principles of this are, but I do know that think of the story of the master and his servants and the talents that he gives them. Talents meaning the currency that he gives them to go invest. And you've got one that digs a hole and puts it in there. You've got one that goes invest and brings back a return. That is a clear. That story is clear that God will provide you with resources, and it doesn't always mean financial resources, but God will provide you with a certain literal talent, a skill or financial resources or some kind of, a business
spiritual gift,
or some sort of, spiritual gift, some sort of resource. And it's almost like he provides it in this aspect, and it is a test of how you use it. And in that story of the master and his servants and the talents, the one who used it took the little bit that the master gave him and used it to go produce more was rewarded more. And it's because I gave you this, and you used it for good. You used it to go produce more. The same way with us, but instead of talking about finances, let's talk about the winning lives for Christ, winning people into heaven.
Yeah.
Maybe he's giving you success because he wants you to utilize the knowledge you have, the influence you have on social media, the finances, the houses that you have. You got tenants in those houses. You have people that you have some sort of influence over. Maybe he put you in that position to test you to see, how are you going to use the resources I've provided you?
Yeah.
And when you go use that for the glory of God, then maybe he blesses you with more resources.
Yeah.
Again, not strictly finances, but maybe I bless you with more opportunity to impact more people.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, even getting down to the janitor, it's like, okay, how are you faithful cleaning this hall of the school?
Yes.
Okay, now you get to clean the lunchroom. Now there's more kids in here for you to impact. Like, it doesn't have to be on a grand scale.
Yes.
Just because God has the power to give you millions of dollars or whatever, that doesn't mean that that's what he gave for you. Your soul, your whole makeup, your whole DNA, he crafted perfectly and beautifully for you to perform whatever it is. And it's not for me or anybody else to say who it is, but I do feel, and you can feel the conviction. I feel at peace with where I'm at. But I do feel like, okay, what does he want me to do? He's not wanting me to build wealth for no reason. There's something, whether it just be the attention I get from building wealth so that I can lead more people to God, or is it so that I can touch lives through real estate and help people get into homes and through the process share little bits of God with them? I don't exactly know, but I do feel like I am truly living through my purpose, and through his will, I'm able to live this life and sell these homes that I'm able to sell, and it just feels right. I don't know. That peace feels right. And you can feel when you get off to the side and you start to get greedy and start to get fleshly, you can feel like God's kind of grabbing you by the back of the neck, like, what are you doing? But yeah, I don't know. The genie thing is something I guess I just totally didn't understand as a little kid. Like, I'm praying for all these things, and why are they not here? Well, they are. They are. They may be there for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're exactly right. I also think oftentimes when I hear stories like that, I also wonder, you say you prayed for these things. You didn't have a relationship with God. You didn't know who He was. Who are you praying to?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're praying to Him like a genie in a bottle, and you also don't have that relationship, I don't know that you were praying to the God I know.
Yeah.
Because and that sounds a little harsh to say that about somebody who's not a Christian. They're trying to make an effort to pray and ask for something. But the point being, the way you approach that prayer and the way that what you're asking for has a lot more to do with the results of that than necessarily God's sovereignty.
Yeah.
If He was a genie in a bottle, honestly, what kind of God is that anyway?
Well, let's segue into what kind of God is it anyways. My preacher talks about, Stephen Swords, he talks about, in many ways, if you're praying and things aren't happening, or life's not improving, it's only two things it could be. Either you're the problem or God's the problem. You really think that God is the problem? You really think that? So it's like, and like you said, into the who is God? If you haven't picked up the scripture and read it, it's very difficult to really know who God is and really understand Jesus and where He comes in and understand the Spirit and the things that are promised, the friend that the Spirit is promised to be for you, and the guidance. And you may think that Christianity's hard, instead of understanding that, His burden is light, His yoke is easy. Mm-hmm. If you don't read those words and truly understand what God is, who He is, how He loves, what godly love is, man, the idea of being a Christian, the definition of Christian is to be Christ-like. Now, it's 100% you're going to fail that every day. You can't be Christ-like. You can be like striving for it. That's the sanctification process. You're trying your best every day. You're learning, you're reading the scripture. You're trying to become as close to Christ as you possibly can be in this crappy fleshly body. But if you're not reading the word, how do you know how Christ is? How can you call yourself a Christian if you don't know who Christ is? Mm-hmm. If you haven't even tried to do the homework. There's a book there, and I just didn't understand it until this year. Man, I've been pretty good. I'm almost done with the whole thing in my first year, because I was like, Christ is love. Mm-hmm. It says that so many times in the Bible, and I'm like, I've been to therapists and all these things and read all these books. Like, I'm trying to find out what love is. I've been searching for it my whole life. I thought if I made money, more people would love me, and then I would know what love is. And I get to learn through Christ what love is. And so now I'm just obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with the book, and I'm obsessed with learning as quickly as I can and efficiently as I can who Christ is, so that I can better be like Him. Yeah.
Well, and I've loved watching your journey through that. And one thing, and then we'll get off this topic, but the last thing I want to say is just in case somebody is listening and maybe in that same position that you were in, where doesn't know who Christ is, doesn't necessarily know whether they believe, and they've been praying for things to happen and it's not happening yet. There are two other possibilities. It may not be a God problem. There are two other possibilities. Either one, the easy one that everybody throws out there, is that's not God's plan for your life. That's not in God. That's not in the cards for you, in regards to what God wants for you. Maybe that's it. Very much could be. The other one is maybe you aren't in the place where you're ready to receive what you're actually even asking for. Let's say I'll give an analogy. So let's say that I'm 2 months into selling insurance. 2 months after having my license, and I'm all gung ho about this. Let me tell you what I would have loved right then: about $1 million worth of insurance premium to sell in my first year. Looking back, if I'd have prayed for that and God provided it, dude, I would have flopped so hard it wouldn't have been. It would have been awful, because I didn't have the experience or the knowledge at that point in time to handle that level of policies, that level of service work. I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have been able to pay attention to all the details of each policy. I'm using insurance because that's what I do. But same way, no matter what it is you're praying for, maybe you're not in the place yet. To handle what you even are asking for. You don't even know that if God were to bless you with what you're asking for, you would sink. And so you got to go through this process a lot of times of becoming the person that you need to be in order to receive those blessings. And so a lot of times it sounds cheesy, but a lot of times it's either not in his plan or just not in his plan yet.
Yeah.
And you have to trust that the creator of the universe knows what's best for you.
Yeah, and you better know what you're praying for. You better be very, very thoughtful about what you ask for. He gonna give it to you. But I pray for patience. He might push a closing back a couple weeks. Oh, come on, that's not what I meant. What are you doing? That's not what I meant. You pray for strength, and he brings you pain. You know, you pray for love. You experience hate. Like he knows how you need to be crafted. You know, and he's just so much bigger. And you know, that's why I say don't lean on your own understanding. Trust that he knows what he's doing, and trust, you know, I guess that's kind of where faith went into. It's very hard for me to understand, to just blindly believe into something. But now that I see it and I'm on the other side and I kind of have eyes to see now, it's like I got everything I ever prayed for. It just wasn't exactly how I worded it. And so, you know, there's people out there right now that are struggling, and they're praying for strength, and they're praying for this. So they're praying to be the guy to change for generations how to save their family. And you're going through hell, good. That's exactly what he wants you to go through right now. Because in order to be the guy that can do something like that, you got to know you got to be tested. You got to go through the fire. So absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of times too, your desires will change. That sanctification process you're talking about, the more you chase after Christ, your desires change, and you start to realize, I was praying for this thing over here, but now that I'm along this Christian journey, this faith journey, I'm now at this point in time, and I realize that what I was praying for back then was stupid. Like that's not Christ-like at all. You know, I wasn't even, if I would have gotten that, I would have been so far away from Christ that that's not what I wanted anyway. So a lot of times the process of sanctification solves a lot of your issues anyway, because you get over here and you see the light of Christ, and you're like, I wouldn't have wanted that anyway. I don't know. I'm glad he didn't answer that prayer. I'm glad he didn't give me that, because now that I'm within God's plan, I am so thankful that he didn't give me that, because it led me to where I am now. And I'm a much better person now because that prayer wasn't answered then. Yeah, and it's just hard to be okay with that.
Yeah, and people forget that God can say no. I mean, if your kids are asking you for everything, look at somebody, how they raise, you know, God is the best father you could ever imagine. And if your kids are asking you for sugar before bed, and you don't give them sugar before bed, does that mean you're not answering? Does that mean you don't love them? Does that mean you don't hear them, that you're not there for them? No, it's just they know what's best for you. And a lot of people are praying for things, and instead of praying, and that's something I'm getting a lot better at. I'll get to pray, and I'll be like, Lord, let me close this deal. Let me. Lord, have your will with my life. I don't know what it is, but I'm here. Like, just guide me. You know, send the Spirit. Just whatever you need me to do, I got you. Just I trust you. And you know, in the early stages of this, I was just praying for numbers, material things, and things that He may not have wanted for my life. And you just said something that brought something to my mind. I don't know. I can't even remember. I was on to something though. I was definitely on to something.
Maybe you'll remember it in a second.
Yeah.
No, and I think you're exactly right. That's actually what I was thinking of when you were saying that, is, you know, if your kids are asking for chocolate cake for every meal of every day. Not only is it not a good idea for them to get that and they don't get what they ask for, but also when they're 18, 20, 25, 30, especially in their 40s, they look back and they go, thank goodness my mother didn't give me chocolate cake for every meal, because Lord knows where I'd be if they did do that. Lord knows where my health would be if they did that. So not only is it's not just that that's not good for you and you have to trust that God knows that. There's going to become a point where you progress towards Christ and you're becoming more Christ-like, where you look back and you go, not only was it in his best interest, or in my best interest, and I have to trust that, but now I realize that too. I see it. Like I physically see that what I wanted back then. So unanswered prayers are something that unfortunately we just have to deal with and realize that is part of God's will.
Yeah, I think I kind of remember where I was headed.
Go for it.
When we talked, and we did talk last time about how you grew up in a Christian household, and I grew up in the couldn't have been any further opposite spectrum of that. Now that when I first became a Christian, I didn't have any any ideas of what a Christian was, I had just picked up the Bible for the first time, and I felt a very serious anxiety when I first got saved. I felt peace. That hole wasn't there, but I also felt like oh my God, God is real, and how much am I letting him down from day to day? And I thought, like, okay, I need to be a Christian. Christian is a goal, and I need to be there now, or I'm going to go to hell if I die today. As I'm starting to read, I understand that being Christ-like is not a goal because you can't reach it. It's impossible to be Jesus Christ. There's only one perfect man to ever walk this earth.
Yes.
And so I kept getting burnt out, and I was like, calling my buddy Tristan, I'm like, man, I'm just exhausted. Like, I fail every day. I fail every single day. You know, a good-looking woman may walk through the gym, and I look, okay, that's my disgusting human fleshly body that is failing Christ, and he's going to fail Christ every single day. You can't be a perfect man. And I don't want other people, and we segued into, you know, beating ourselves up. I don't want people that are new Christians or thinking, you know, becoming Christians being held down through shame or getting burned out quickly because they're not perfect enough or they can't be perfect enough. Jesus wasn't put on this earth to die on the cross for perfect people. That's not why Jesus came about. Yes. It's because we suck. If you read the Old Testament, it's like I had to put down the Old Testament and jump into the New Testament because I was getting like so irritated. Like, they were doing good. God was pleased. They were doing bad. He sends hellfire. They were doing. It was like it kept going for 1,000 pages, and I'm like, why? When are they going to be good people? Mm-hmm. And then I found out it literally took Jesus he was sent because we don't have that in our fleshly genetic makeup to be perfect people.
Also, it's funny how when you read in the pages of Scripture, it's almost like you're 30,000 feet up and you're seeing all this play out because you're seeing it from God's point of view a lot of times, and you're able to see from very high up. You're able to look over, 10,000 years and see, what's happening.
Yeah,
and it's easy for us to say and I do the same thing, man. In Old Testament, get super irritated. Like, how could you be so stupid? You're in God's blessing, and then you go and screw it up, and now you're outside of God's blessing, and He puts you through hardship. What's funny about that is we do the same exact thing every day. We do the same thing in our own individual life. It's just harder to see when you're looking at life day by day rather than looking at life, 5,000 years at a time. Mm-hmm. And so that's why the Old Testament is there, is to irritate us, I believe. Yeah. There's an element there of like, the Old Testament law and those sorts of things don't apply to us anymore, but it's there as an example of what human nature will do to you, even to the people who, you've got people who literally walk with Christ that become idiots, and that's New Testament, but you've got examples in Scripture of human beings being being idiots, and it's easy for us to point that out when we're reading in Scripture, but we do that in our own life all the time and not even realize it, and then wonder why is everything going wrong, man?
Yeah, and it just, I guess with this being all so new to me, and I didn't spend time in church growing up, but I get real emotional about it. Some days I go out on the back porch and read, and I just think about who even I am now. Yes, I have regrets of who I was and all those things, but I'm just like, how much would you have to love somebody to send your own child to go die for their redemption? Mm-hmm. How much would you like? I wouldn't send my brother to die for anybody. Like, I don't love y'all that much, So it's like, it's just crazy. It makes me feel so just grateful that somebody, and I had always been just looking for someone to love me genuinely, and not be Max has money, we're gonna love him because he has money. He's a resource for us. I just want somebody to love me genuinely, and to know that that Jesus has been there the whole time, and I just didn't know it. They're just the most intense love you could ever imagine. And now that I'm sort of understanding the Spirit, I don't have to do this alone. I always felt alone growing up. I felt alone in the fact that literally alone. Mom's door's locked, this, that, and then I felt alone once I learned about money and all this. Nobody wanted to hear about that. I'm 17 years old. These kids don't want to hear about a millionaire and investing in stocks and all. They don't want to hear about that. So I just always felt alone, and now I don't. And so when I'm in a room by myself and the door's shut and nobody's around me, I don't have to go to the bar anymore because this just amazing, Jesus is there. Like the Spirit, the comfort of the Spirit is there. Yeah, it's just really, really cool, man. I know there's so many people out there. And it's funny because I get emotional now looking at people that I'm like, man, if you only knew. Because I don't get to where I push. I never liked when people push God on me when I was growing up. I feel like we all sort of have our own journey, and I don't know if this is biblically correct, but there's going to be a time where certain people need to find God or whatever, and I just like, man, you would not be going through what you're feeling right now. You would not have that sickness that once your bedroom door's shut and you're crying on your pillow, you would not have that if you knew who Jesus Christ was. And I just, it's funny how once you feel it and you learn it and you start to understand it, you want everybody else to know about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to do like you did and forget exactly what I was about to say, but oh my gosh.
You'll get it in a minute.
Let's see. What were we talking about with
feeling alone?
Yes. Shortly before that, you were talking. I've got it now. So you were talking about how much somebody would have to love someone else to send their son to do that, and you wouldn't send your brother to die for somebody, much less your own son. Think about this for a second. I was thinking about this when you said that. I wouldn't be able to send a son of mine. I wouldn't be able to send a child to die for somebody else, even if it meant that I got all the praise that could be. If I, say somebody needed help, and the only way to save them and the only way to save their life was to send my own kid to go do it. Right? Yeah. And then at the end of that whole town or that whole group of people, anybody that knew that it would happen, comes to me and praises me nonstop about it. I still wouldn't do it. That praise is not worth that. Think about this, though. God sent his son knowing that every single person, every single human being that ever existed in history at some point was going to reject him and spit on him. Mm-hmm. Also knew that there were going to be people that he sent his son to die for that, similarly to what you were talking about in your household growing up, is going to laugh at him and mock him. And he looked through time. He looked through time and space and said, that person I'm going to send my son after. Regardless of the criticism, regardless of the laughing, regardless of these people who say that they hate me and despise me, my son is still going, and I'm still sacrificing him for those people because I love them so much. I still want those people to at least have the opportunity to be with me one day.
It's not something you can fathom. It's not something you can fathom. But grace, I don't do well with giving myself grace, but the idea that his grace is sufficient is so crazy to me, because I'm like, why would you give me any grace? Now, a lot of this, I grew up in a household that was just very full of shame. Hurt people, and we were hurt a lot, and so we hurt each other. But it's just so cool to know that somebody forgives me. The idea of forgiveness is such a more beautiful, just eye-opening thing to me, and it's how cool, man, how lucky we are. Yeah. How lucky we are.
Yeah, extremely lucky. Almost like the creator of the universe orchestrated it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So we're getting ready to wrap up, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak to, I think a lot of the listeners are going to be people who, or at least I hope, the audience that I hope to reach at some point is listeners like me and you were in high school that's going to go turn on this podcast and be looking for something, not just career-wise, but just life in general. What is the meaning of life? How do I progress in my career? How do I get to where I want to be? I've got this dream and I want to chase it. Let's pretend you're talking to high school Max, junior year Max, senior year Max, or junior, senior year Jaylon, and you have the experience and the knowledge you have now. What is one thing that you would want to leave with them in general, spiritually, career-wise, life-wise? What is the one thing that they could go apply today to move towards that dream and that life that they think that they want?
I'd probably tell them the same thing that I imagine you'd probably tell them. I'd tell them to call Max at Remax. No, I'm joking, man. We talked about how I always felt crazy, and if they were anything like me, you're a young kid who you're meant for something bigger, but you don't really see a roadmap for it anywhere. But you just feel like this very hot, burning passion inside of you. You're like, there is. I just knew, man. I knew I'd be a millionaire by 30. I knew that I was going to have almost everything I have. Like I literally have a memo pad from 2015, big black truck. Like I visualized it for such a long time, all the way down to just everything, man. My house, everything. It was almost like I manifested. God gave it to me, whatever, but God made a way. But I would just say you're not crazy. I would say whatever this is you're feeling, if there's something that you cannot go a second without thinking about it, don't give up on it. I don't care what your family says. I don't care what social media says. I don't care if people laugh at you. People laugh at me all the time. You know, I had some guy message me on social media saying, bro, sincerely, Marshall County, nobody wants to hear about you wanting to be a millionaire when you live in your mom's basement. Hey, I would have loved to have a basement, but they don't have those in apartments. It's too small. But, you know, you're just going to just keep going. Like if you, I would lay in bed, dude, and I would see this life and I would think about it. And it got so strong. It got to a point where I'm not kidding. This is a true story. I would wake up and I'd watch like Eric Thomas videos and I would write in my memo pad, like just over and over, like, you're going to have this, you're going to have this, you're going to be this, you're strong, you're this. And I would do it till like 3 a.m. after work. After I'd work at Top of the River, I'd go to Bender's Gym and use somebody's code that I stole because I looked over their shoulder and got their code and used that for years until they didn't pay their bill. I'd walk up, stay up till 3 a.m. on a school night, just like programming. I was so, just something was in me, dude. And mom made me get a drug test because she was like, I know you're on cocaine. Like, I know you're on drugs. There's no way that you're like this and you're not on drugs. And I passed. And she thought I failed it. She thought I like tricked the drug test. And she was very mad at me. She still didn't believe it, even after I passed the drug test. So like, if you have that fire, dude, just freaking go for it. And you're not crazy. And there's a reason why you feel that way.
Yep. I could not agree more. There's a reason that you have that fire in you to do that. You don't get that level of passion and that level of drive just because you thought about it for one day and it's something cool to do. You know, there's a lot of things that I think are neat. You know, I think what you do in real estate is awesome, but I don't have that burning desire that you had to do that. That burning desire is a sign and is not something to shy away. A lot of times, actually almost every time, that is something that is worth chasing. Now, how do you execute and how do you make that happen? Knowledge is one of them. You know, it may require you to go get another job and take a series of steps to finally get there. But don't ever extinguish that. Don't ever get rid of that desire and constantly chase it. Because, and I'm not going to go into all the details of it just because it would take too long and we got to get out of here. But just like you, I had a burning desire to own a business, had no idea it would be in insurance. And then because of the steps along the way and because I didn't extinguish that fire to own and run and operate a business, now I get to do that every single day and love it. And I'm more passionate about it than anything else I have been my entire life. And so I couldn't agree more, man.
And it's been cool to watch you, man. It's been just from afar. Like we haven't met until I guess recently, but man, you inspired me. You know, you had a hunger. You've been a little bit younger. You had a hunger that I kind of admired because I'm like, man, I kind of have felt comfort, and it was really cool to see you and to still see you do what you're doing. It is you inspired me, and I know you're inspiring a bunch of other people too.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's not me. It's the fire that God puts inside you, and then
absolutely
He makes a way to execute. So,
yeah, man.
Thank you for coming on again. I really appreciated it, and hopefully, I actually think that this podcast went better than the one. So. The one that nobody heard. So,
dude, I hope they hear this one.
Well, I appreciate it. We'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, man. Can't wait.